Welcome everyone to our final session of our Podcasting 101 online course. We have our resident expert, in-house expert, Raphael Francis, who is here again with us today. And we have a guest technical expert and filmmaker, Alan McPherson, who's also here to answer our questions. And Dr. Clark and I have lots of questions and we want to hear yours too. So without further ado, we will get going just to get to know each other even more. And for Alan, who's new, let's each take a moment to share our name and to share one thing that you really enjoyed about summer. What's one memorable moment that you're going to take with you into the fall? And for many, the fall feels like a new year because you're back to work or back to school. So what's a memorable moment from the summer that you had?
Yeah, since I'm at the top here, I'll start. It's such a pleasure to be here again. And, our second program for the summer and the brightness and the opportunity to do some drive out with my wife was great. I really enjoy those days when I'm able to take a drive out, and it's awesome.
You're talking about country roads?
Country road, take me home where I belong. Yeah. You know that one, Raphael?
Most certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. Over to you, Raphael.
One of the things I take away from this summer is the fact that we were able to enjoy the establishment of a virtual community with young people, intergenerational activities, and especially the drumming.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. And as you know, both of you know, my Thursday afternoon is dedicated to a virtual music program where people of my genre and we meet from 3 to 6 o'clock and join all of the oldies from back in the 50s and 60s, 70s, and 80s, which I call soundtracks of my life. And the participants have become so dependent on the 3 hours, they look forward to. There's one friend of mine, he was in the Bermuda to attend a wedding, but he still kept in touch with us. There's a lady from Ottawa who came to Pickering to be with her son and her daughter-in-law, and she too didn't want to miss the program. So yes, that's one of the highlight of my summer.
Awesome. Yeah, I must admit, Raphael, it's been a great program. I try to get on when I can, and you've done such a great job DJing that. And some things that I look back to. Thanks so much. And everyone is invited to be there.
Of course.
Yeah.
I wish Joan O'Brien was here today, because last Thursday she was at a restaurant in Brooklyn, just north of Whitby, and she joined in, stayed for a while and disappeared. So I need to find out what was the reason why she left.
That's good. Over to you, Alan.
Great. Yes. It's been an interesting summer, hot. I guess, and I enjoy the heat. I don't like the cold. I keep saying I was born in the wrong latitude. So I love the heat. When I go down to the Caribbean, it doesn't bother me. I can work down there and exist quite nicely. I guess, I had spent about a 6-day journey with a friend of mine on her houseboat going up the Trent Severn waterway. We went as far as the Swift Rapids, went through one lock, and it was just a great time swimming and just enjoying. We hit the perfect stretch of weather because it's been very kind of unsettled this summer, but we had 6 days of really nice weather. So I'll hold that as a summer memory.
For me, I um, I enjoyed being a part of this. I really enjoyed the drumming, and I'm just enjoying the podcast. And I'm hoping that things could continue where I could continue to interact. I did not take any long trips. I garden a lot, so my garden is my little solace. I just love sitting outdoors. I eat every meal outside, watch the birds, the animals that come to visit, my fish. This is the first year I think that I've spent so many hours sitting in my garden, just sitting there and watching God's creation, just watching and enjoying, and I entertain a bit. So friends drop by, and yeah, it's been just lovely.
Thank you, Pat. Oh, Leroy, you're on mute.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, let's hear from Mary. What is your memorable moment you're taking from the summer, Mary?
Well, going outside more because I like sitting on the patio a lot. And it's nice, like beautiful weather outside every time, like at the end of the day, we like see the sunset. It's really nice. Going out more. Going. There was a festival yesterday at Scarborough. It was really nice. And yeah, walking the dogs a lot because they need a lot of exercise, and they're puppies, so they need a lot of training too. So we've been doing that for a while. Swimming, a lot of swimming because it's really hot for most of the days, even back in July. Yeah.
Whoa, sounds like a great summer.
Yeah,
That's
really
awesome.
great summer.
Awesome.
That's it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mary. Over to you, Haley.
My favorite summer memory would be hanging out with my neighbor because when he and his family had first moved in next door, we were best friends, and then he started making his own friends, so then we like kind of drifted apart. So then this summer I got to hang out with him and his friends and stuff, and we got to go and like we call them little adventures because we just don't know where we're going. We're just wandering around the neighborhood. So I think that would have to be my favorite part.
Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome.
Interesting how some of those neighborly connections with COVID have rekindled.
Yeah.
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 I'll share.
I know you had some neighborly connections yourself, Alicia.
Yeah. I would say that my highlight of my summer has been I'm house sitting for one of our seasoned adults who was in our last drumming program, Emmy, and he has every neighbor around his house is like amazing, and he's friends with all of them. So I've been meeting with them, and yeah, I have a busy social calendar keeping up with his neighbors. And it's been really nice. It's a very tiny town, this place called Greenbank. It's like a village. I don't even think it's a town, it's a village. And it's been nice to be walking distance to community. I'm used to my friends living far and wide and having to drive far just to see a friend. So it's been really special time. So
Yes.
yeah, we'd like to
Awesome.
also hear from each of our participants just quickly before we do a slideshow review, and then we'll move into the next part of our time with Alan and Raphael, asking them some questions. But we want to hear from each of you if you think you would start your own podcast, if you feel inspired to start your own podcast, or if you would be interested in participating in creating an intergenerational hub podcast, which is on the agenda for the future. We don't know the timeline just yet, but we want to know who would be interested, whether you're doing some technical stuff or interviewing, and we would keep up the training. We're all learning together here. So, and we'll just go quickly one by one. Are you going to interested to start your own podcast and or interested to join us in another program to create a couple podcasts?
Just click the email, it should open up for you.
I think Joan's helping Joan, or Pat's helping Joan O'Brien get on, so we won't ask her first. How about we start with Haley? Haley, yeah, go ahead.
I am inspired to create my own podcast, and I would also like to join you in making an intergenerational podcast.
Great. Okay, over to Mary.
I would like join the program again so I can learn more about making a podcast so I can do it up by myself. Even if I like when I go to university. So I can keep learning. Yeah.
Awesome. Good.
Awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah.
Raphael kind of already has his own podcast radio show going. Would you join us again, Raphael?
Most certainly. I would like to be a part of it and help facilitate anyone wanting to get into the podcasting game, because I think everybody has a story to tell. And all I would like to do is to facilitate the telling of the story.
Awesome.
Pat, I think she's still helping Joan. Okay. We can come back to Pat and ask about that later. Okay, so just
good. I'm good. So what I'm interested in everything that you plan to do going forward. I would like, because I run this program, I would like to know how I can do different, like a podcast to encourage other youth by maybe interviewing past participants. I would like to do that properly so that people could hear and other young people could have a better idea as to the program. So I'm really interested in going forward with creating a good podcast, learning how to do it better.
Awesome.
Great. Okay.
Awesome.
Very good. So I'll just guide us through a very brief review of everything we've learned so far. That might seem overwhelming, but I'll just go through the slideshow and kind of to help us jog our minds about questions we might have. So it'll just take a few minutes. I'm going to share my screen. We began our journey together exploring what is a podcast and benefits of podcasting. We talked about how podcasts are different from radio. You often you're able to download them typically, and there's engagements with your followers who are engaging and responding to you about the podcast episodes. And we listed some of the benefits of podcasting, that if you have very simple technology, you have the possibility to share your story, share your voice, and that millions of people around the world are listening to podcasts at this time. And it also supports us to develop a transferable skill set with research, interviewing, storytelling, and technical and audio skills. Then this says last week, but it was 2 weeks ago, we broke down interviewing skills and techniques. We talked about creating the atmosphere, techniques to help build connection and support the interviewee to relax, but also yourself as the interviewer. We talked about what to do if there's uncomfortable topics that come up and how to make boundaries. We talked about sound bites, those really informative, short, descriptive type quotes that are really interesting and great for promotion, and how to get those in the interview. And we talked about following the interview like it's a winding river. And I emailed you this document, so everybody has it. And I think we'll upload it. We have a podcast page on our Intergenerational Hub website. So we can, after this course, we can start uploading some of the documents and the links so that they're easy for you to find whenever you might want them. Last week, we talked about the casting process and looking for subjects who are interesting to interview, outgoing, learning about their story in the pre-interview, getting to know that person. And we did a couple breakout rooms with interviewing sessions last week and the week before. And I think based on the feedback, we all really enjoyed that. And we learned a lot about each other through that process. We also practiced last week listening to the room. Each of us brought different things that we were making noise with, and the others were trying to listen for it and guess what it was. And it helped us to think about the different sounds that our brain filters out that we should be listening for. Unfortunately, my headphones and I have a strained relationship, and they like to play hide and seek with me. So they're gone again, and you might notice the quality of my audio is not as good as it is sometimes when I have my earbuds in. We also talked about how to, in the pre-interview, support the person who is now we're talking about remote interviews, so they're at home on their computer, and how to help them if they have an echo in the room, and how to support them to get the clearest sound possible. I also shared about how I've done recording in my closet with clothes hanging in there, and how that's helped make a nice, clean, Raphael, I remember, used the word sterile environment that's really not having any sound, really buffered from any other sound. And yeah, here's the group exercise. Name that sound. Patricia had her cat purring and licking. I remember tapping on glass, on desks, pens, squeaky chairs. We had a variety of sounds that jewelry, bangles. So we began to develop awareness about some of the things we might mention to a person who we're interviewing, a list of things that we would ask that they be aware of, and also other people in the house to let them know that there's an interview happening. So I spoke to this already. We launched our breakout room interviews by asking the question, who is the most interesting person you know and why? And that opened up, we followed our curiosity and let that open into a conversation based on the questions that arose as we heard this story from the interviewee. We watched the end part of Lessons Learned, Bridging the Gap Between Seniors and Youth, which showed how, and Alan is the person who supported me to create this film, and all of this gear you see in the photo was Alan's doing, and Alan really helped me to cultivate my interviewing skills so that I could get the best, or get the stories that we wanted, while helping the person feel comfortable and at ease to share those stories. And in that film, you saw how you didn't hear me asking any questions. We pieced together the responses of the interviewees, and it told a story. Now, Pat is talking about, she has a gala, a cotillion ball, and a program called EDGE that engages Black youth in a very empowering, dynamic program. And there's a huge ball at the end. It looks amazing. And so that could be a possibility. Pat would choose whether she wants to have her voice in there asking the questions, or she could string together the responses of the participants about their experiences, and that could tell a story in itself. We only looked at names of podcast platforms, Buzzsprout being one that has a free version where you can host your podcast, and Anchor FM as well has a free version. And we looked at audacityteam.org, which also has a free version to edit the interviews, the material that you gather. So these are the many facets of that are part of the course that we did together. I hope that's helped to jog a few questions for you that you may have. This is certainly an opportunity to share with Alan and Raphael what kind of device you're using. What would you use for your podcast? Is it your Samsung phone? Is it your laptop? Oops, remember to tell people to turn off their phones in the interview. You can ask about microphones. You can ask about the cheapest ones, the most expensive. You can ask about storytelling, interviews. There are endless possibilities. And we can also interview these two and get some, we have them here to support us. So without further ado, we will open up the space to ask questions, and perhaps we can, we'll just open it up for questions. Just a minute.
Yes. So I'm sure you have questions. We have a few that that we talk about earlier, but we'll allow you to go again. And some general questions that we want to ask is, for example, and if you feel comfortable answering as well in your own experience, but certainly Raphael and Alan, your input are very important here. Okay. Okay. First of all, how can the skills that we learned at podcasting, we can do? How can we apply the skills that we learn in podcasting? Some of the things that we have seen is we have done some of those, but in general, how are some of those skills? How can we apply some of those skills in podcasting?
I could probably take that. I mean, if you're interested in producing media, whether it's a podcast or video, or all of these skills are central to telling a story, telling your story, and the medium now is podcasting and video. I mean, that's the primary way of communicating your story, connecting with people, building an audience, building a community. So it's the interviewing skills. It's the mix of creative and technical, and that's what fascinated me about creating media or getting involved in media production. It was just that mix of the creative and the technical. I'm a nerd, I'll admit it, and so the skills that you learn about listening, like working with your ears, like listening for sounds that shouldn't be there. It's like critical listening skills, both for the technical side and critical listening skills for the interview, where you can hear what your interviewee is talking and be able to get more out of the interview and further that connection is important. And my big thing to noise, all about signal to noise. I learned that in broadcasting, it's your signal is your message. It's what you want to communicate, and everything else is noise. So it's visual noise, it's audio, so you strengthen the signal, and it's clearer for your audience. It's less tiresome for them to listen to, especially in video. In video, audio is 80%. Even higher, 85, 90% is audio, because people put up with sort of not great video, but if the audio is not good, people turn off.
Yeah.
So those are important skills that you've been learning to, and the communication skills in general are important in life.
Awesome. Anyone else have a question that you want to ask? If you don't have one yet, just write it down. Or if, yeah, you can also write it in the chat to ask the question. So keep that in mind as well. Now, Raphael, I'm interested in you taking on this one in terms of your long history in the area of broadcasting and communication. Where do you see podcasting going? Does it have a sustainable history there? Do you think it's something that will run the test of time? That What are your thoughts on that?
I had to unmute my microphone. I have no doubt that this podcasting thing is going to be a long-lasting thing, and I'll say why. Podcasts are as varied as the people who create them, and the subject matter runs a wide gamut. Yeah. And it is growing by leaps and bounds. Everybody who has a smartphone with a built-in camera and ability to record audio is in of themselves a mini content creator. Okay. And perhaps sometimes the police probably forget that. And I would leave it at that point. I would like to just mention the fact that a couple of years ago, we got funding from New Horizons for Seniors program, and we did a program called Elder Abuse, Identity Theft, and Other Scams. And I promised that I would produce a video as one of the end products, which I did. Unfortunately, the environment in which we were wasn't conducive to the best recording because people were popping the caps of their pop cans. They were clanking and making noise. So when it comes to cleaning up the audio, it was a massive undertaking. So I kind of specialize now in what I call audio restoration. Okay? Because as Alan said, people can tolerate the blurry, not so, what I call seasick video, whereby it's rocking up and down. But when it comes to the audio, you gotta want to get it done properly. You need to hear it clean and distinct dialogue amongst the participant, the interviewer and the interviewee. And as Dr. Clark knows, I've been at this thing for a while since the days when multimedia was a new idea and video on the computer was just the size of a postage stamp. So yeah, I think there's no doubt that podcasting is going to carry on for a while because everybody, as I said, has a story and they want to tell it. And today the technology that's available makes it so easy for them to do it. Whether it's about traveling, about pet or gardening, or just folklore storytelling so that you can record this thing for posterity. I think it's going to be around for a long time. And I hope to play a part in it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
I can add on to that.
Okay, go ahead.
I could amplify that what Raphael said. Yes, definitely. I mean, it's changing. It's becoming more commercialized now. You'll see you'll see now a lot of the platforms are adding subscriptions because people are trying to monetize it. But everybody has a voice, and if you have a little bit of technical knowledge, you can create your podcast. And the trick after that is to find your community, to let people know it's there and to build that community. I'll put this a link in the chat. It was an article written by Kevin Kelly, who was the founder of Wired magazine, and it was the article about building a community. It's called 1,000 True Fans, and it was the concept that if you have 1,000 true fans, you can build a community. You can also make a living. So I'll just post that there. I think it was been updated since it was written probably in the 90s, I want to say, or early 2000s. It was the early days of the of the internet, and he founded Wired magazine, a famous tech magazine. And I'll just paste that in there now.
Thanks, Alan.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
yeah, you can produce something, but then it's important that you let people know it's there.
Awesome.
And build that community.
Awesome. Thank you for that, both Alan and Raphael, to give us a sense of what the future. I think a follow-up question on that is because radio is so integrally involved with podcasting, maybe I would ask you, what is the future in radio? I know that with rich media, with video and so on, has perhaps gone a far way ahead of radio. Is there any way that radio can catch up again? What are your thoughts? And what are the demographics for radio listeners, and how does that tie into the future of podcasting, for example?
I'm a video guy, but my understanding of radio is a lot of the old media. They're struggling. The newspapers and old school radio, talk radio is still a thing that's, but pop music, it's the streaming services have taken over your Spotify's and your because people basically want the music they want to listen to, and radio doesn't serve it up. If you're interested in public affairs, the States has NPR, Canada has the CBC, so they do some interesting programming if you're into that. But as far as your traditional FM and AM radio, it's challenging. And that's why podcasting has really taken off, because you can hear your own people. You can hear from your people, your community. You can get information, and you can create it yourself. So and it's eating into your traditional media. Traditional television's in the same boat. Because it's the advertising. It's the advertising model. It's not working as well as it used to.
Raphael, we were talking about whether or not radio is going to survive. You have anything you want to add? Seeing as you've had such a career that has spanned across the evolution of broadcasting and technology.
Well, I remember when FM broadcast became popular, they said that was going to be the death of AM broadcasting. It didn't happen. And then television came, and that was supposed to be the death of radio broadcasting. It didn't happen. And podcasting now, there will always be a niche. There are some people who are, for example, night hawks, and they stay up late at night to listen to syndicated radio. For example, there's a program called Coast to Coast AM. It has its following, and it has a global reach. So I think these media, they have to change in order to compete for the attention of the viewers. Okay? And because of the ease with which individuals can create their own contents, there's going to be a shift. Okay, it's going to be a shift. I wouldn't say a seismic shift, but there will be a shift in the way we consume information and how it is provided. And I would like to say that Alan is quite right. You got to know your audience. There are not too many places where you can go to listen to what I call doo-wop music from the 50s, the vocalized, harmonized voices. And so that's what we try to do. And there are people who are reminiscent of those days when they heard these things on the radio. And so we have a little following. And I think, yes, it's going to challenge the traditional media platforms like commercial broadcasting, radio and television, and they have to change with the time, because young people are not going to sit down at home to watch a program when they can take it with them on the road. Okay, you can record it, and you got a break from wherever you are. You're sitting in traffic, and you can listen to or look at something for a little while. Yeah.
I think that's a good point there, Raphael, in terms of portability and mobility. For example, somebody's traveling. I mean, while you're traveling, you certainly can't be staring at video. And people are on the road a lot now. And I think there's a lot to be said about that in terms of appealing. And I know a number of young people are perhaps thinking about this. I love something, but how do I monetize it? And how do I move forward with it? And more around the boutique thing for radio, maybe something where you know your audience and you're going to work with that. I think that is a critical part. Thank you so much for sharing.
Let's pause and see if Mary or Pat have any questions. We'll just have a moment here and open the lines.
Well, for me, because I need to connect with the youth, I am very excited to learn more about how to, because the traditional way that we are using isn't working. So I am very excited to learn more about podcasting, interviewing past recipients, interviewing parents as a way of promoting and getting the word out. So right now I am excited. I'd like to know more and do more. And Raphael, I will be giving you a call.
You can at any time, dear. You have my number, I think?
Yes.
Good. Sure.
Yeah. Awesome.
Now, Pat, would it be helpful for Alan to speak for a minute about the microphones that might work with your computer or your phone?
Yes, please do. Yes.
And what would you be using? Let's say you're doing a remote interview with one of your participants. Will you be on your phone or an iPad or a computer?
Well, I have all three. So I would like to ask, which is the best option?
Probably you say you have a laptop?
I have a laptop.
Yep.
Well, I have a desktop, but I have a computer.
Oh, you have a PC.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a PC computer. So that or the possibly the iPad. Basically, what you need for an interview, if you're doing a remote interview, you need a visual connection. You need to be able to see each other and pick up on cues, and then you need to be able to record the audio. If you're doing a visual one, so basically a USB microphone, any of the built-in microphones don't tend to work well. Meaning, like if you have a laptop and it's got a built-in microphone, what you can do is add the lowest common denominator is to use earbuds with that have the built-in microphone. If you can, that is the sort of the low cost, and it works. It can work. You have to check it out to get the quality. And if you're working, let's say, with an iPad. Or is it an iPad or a PC tablet, like a Samsung?
No, it's a tablet. It's
a Samsung, a Samsung tablet,
Samsung,
or a
yes,
Samsung. Okay, so that they have an earphone jack, I do believe, in them, and so you could plug in a with that, and if you're you just hold the best thing to do, especially if you're working with a portable device, is not hold it in your hand kind of thing. You want to prop it up. And so you're not getting that movement or up the nose look where you're holding it down, you're looking down at them. You want it eye level. So you see where I have my cameras that I'm looking at you eye level, and you're pretty well eye level. The one thing I'd recommend for you though is to not have a window right behind you, because what happens is your camera you go silhouette. Yeah, you go silhouette.
Yes. I was trying to turn, but yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it's difficult. You have to almost rearrange your room. So, but that's a hint there. Yeah, now you're talking. Now we can. But you've got to watch your technology there. Be careful. But that's now I can see your face, and if we were having a conversation, I can tell if you're interested in what I'm having to say, or
Yes.
we can communicate. So, and then if you had earbuds, you might need an extension. Sometimes the cords aren't long enough. You might need an extension so you don't have it too close. But that would be a work. You're on an iPad now,
Yes.
or the tablet. You're on your tablet now. A tablet, right? Yeah,
So I
that
need
works.
earbuds that matches the Samsung. I'm going to put on this light to see if.
Yeah, you don't really need much. Yeah, you don't really need too much more light. There's light on your face, and that's important. Now, if you were doing a video recording, you could do a little bit more work, but the camera on that tablet is pretty good. The quality is the product. It's definitely good enough to do an interview where you have to be able to see each other, so it's good enough for that. And then for audio, you could. Basically, with a tablet, there are interfaces where you can bring in higher end microphones, but if you want to move up to higher end microphones, then you'd have to work with your computer, which has a USB interface, and then you would use a USB type microphone. I don't know if we were talking earlier, if you were on the conversation, but the one USB I kind of recommend as a starter is this one. It's called Samsung Q2U, and it's got a USB plug, and it's also got you put your earbuds in here so you can monitor the sound out of this as well, and it just would plug into your computer.
I'd like it's a Samsung. Can I just?
Samsung. What I'll do is I'll put it in the chat. I'll put it in the chat. So that's a good starter. It's under. I want to say it's under on Amazon. It's under $100. It's around 80, 90. It varies on Amazon. You can find them around that price. But from there, you can go up to thousands of dollars for microphones and interfaces and all of that. But I've recorded with it, and the sound is reasonable. And it's a kind of microphone that you want to work close. It's a dynamic microphone, like this one I'm using here, and like Raphael's using. So it's a kind of a microphone that you don't want to have too far away from you. You want to work it close, and that captures your voice well. And it also reduces noise in the background. A dynamic microphone does. So that would be a start. So with your computer, you would probably need a webcam, unless you have.
I have one. Yeah.
Okay, great. If you have a webcam with your computer, that's good. That's what I would recommend. And also, your computer tends to have more storage. So when you're recording your audio files and working with your audio files, and working with software to edit your audio files, a computer is better.
Okay.
Yeah. Not to say you can't do it on a phone or a tablet, but if you have a computer available with a webcam and the ability to plug a USB microphone, that is better.
Okay.
And I'll definitely
I would definitely be looking into these I would call them gadgets for the time being.
They're tools. They're tools.
Good tools, yes. Tools.
There's a thing.
To get this podcasting going. It is very, very vital that I do this.
Yeah, and when you get the tools, then you do tests. You interview friends. You record yourself. You start to learn people were practicing listening, your listening skills, listening for sounds that shouldn't be there. There's one myth that people say in production: we'll fix it in post. We'll fix it in post, meaning you've just put all the problems onto somebody. Well, if you're doing the post, you just put them on to yourself. Mm-hmm. It's much easier to fix it when you're doing the recording, if you can, than to put it off, push it down the road, and then have to deal with it in post. Especially, certain sounds that are very difficult to work with, because as soon as you start pulling noise out, it's impossible not to affect the quality of the voice. You can reduce, you can't get rid of, and it generally, even the high-end tools, and I have all of them, it does affect the quality of the voice. So you always want to, when you're doing your recordings, try to get the cleanest, the best recording that you can, and then when you're doing the post work, the editing and the sweetening and the leveling, you can do some work there, but it's the myth of fix it in post is not something you want to deal with.
Thank you.
And I agree with what Alan has said, and the only thing I would add is that you can always take a good recording and make it bad. You can't take a bad recording and make it good. Okay, so he's absolutely correct. Try to get it the best way you can at the beginning.
Yes.
Awesome.
And last week lesson about the noises and the things that you hear, really, I became aware of a lot of things that I never thought about. So yes, this is a great program. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you both. It just stirs the interest. I think that there is so much more that we can do, and moving forward, there's opportunity to move forward and to work together, to educate each other and to actually do some practical work in the field. So we'll talk more about that in the future. I think we have to wind down to the last section of today's program.
We could take one more question because we're a small group today, so I think we could have another 5 minutes if there's any other. I don't know if anything's popped up. Oh, Alan's written the microphone name into the chat, Patricia.
Yeah. One other thing I know. Did you talk about the social dilemma at all?
Right.
We didn't get there. Nope.
Oh, because I found it is available on YouTube now, which is free, as opposed to Netflix. It was on Netflix, but it's more. It's not directly related to. I can post it if you like, but it's about. I can or I can't. It's up to you.
You can share it. Maybe you can email us at the Intergenerational Hub after. We can start a library of links.
Yep.
I will say that Alan has a checklist that he goes through with the people he's interviewing, and we didn't cover that here. We will add some resources, and if you keep moving forward with us as we create our podcast, we'll connect about it. But certainly the internet connection that the person has who you're interviewing is something to consider. And there's programs where you can record high quality if they don't have a good internet connection. My sense is most of us are living more or less urban, in our group, and I don't know who you're interviewing, but it tends to be when you go rural, or if lots of people are streaming videos, or even one other person, depending on your internet connection, but then it gets spotty. So, for example, in our Zoom connection, where I was teaching from the drumming, when we were doing the drumming, I was very rural. I was on satellite internet. And so the quality would come in and out. And that would be something to consider with who you're interviewing. Mary, anything you want to share? Any questions coming up for you? How is all of this conversation landing with you?
Feels great. Nice. Yeah. I don't have any other questions. I'm fine.
Okay. Very good. Well, it's been such a treat to hear from both of you. Very rich. I'm sure this conversation could go for hours. There's so much to know, but for now, we've covered some ground in our course, and I think it would be time now to wrap up. Yeah, and unless you have any a sound bite for us, Alan or Raphael. Alan's probably going to check out after and then the rest of us will do a little closing together. Any words of advice or?
No, well, just basically it's the signal to noise. You just have to keep that in mind and tune your ears. And really what Zoom fatigue is bad audio. It's bad audio because we have to work so much harder to understand what someone's saying. It's unconscious, but it's a cognitive load. And that's why we get tired, is because we're trying to hear what someone's saying because of the bad audio, the echo or the noise. So clean, good audio is key.
And doesn't that
for communication.
Doesn't that give us some compassion for people who have hearing aids who struggle, you know, and get tired? I remember my grandfather would just like need to leave the grandchildren at some point. We'd hear his hearing aids going, as they try to piece, people with hearing loss try to piece the information together, and it's tiring for your brain. So we can have compassion for those who we know who have that experience. Raphael, any words of advice or encouragement for us?
I'm sure Pat and Leroy would agree that the tradition that we grew up with of having our older folks tell a story, folklore, some of them are well embellished, and you know, it was part of the hand-me-down way of passing on information. I think with the technology today, it gives us a beautiful opportunity to preserve these things for generations to come. And I'm looking forward to helping anybody who has an interest in that sort of a thing. Yeah.
That's so wonderful. Thank you for that reminder. I had an assignment in university where I was interviewing my grandmother, and I had a tape recorder and tapes, and I'm so glad that I have her voice that I can share with my niece and nephew who are twins, who are babies right now. But one day when they're old enough, I can play the stories from Jamaica that my grandma told me for them, and they can meet her in a way that wouldn't be possible otherwise. So it's such a good point that for us, as you know, especially for some of our youth who do have grandparents at this time, they might be a good place to start with interviews and get some of those stories recorded. And you'll be happy later on that you did.
I'll just echo that as well, Alicia, because this is so critical. My mother passed away at 105 in 2019, just before COVID. And all the time, she was in very good health and very good spirits. And you keep on saying, I'm going to put off recording something with her. And about a year before, I said to my daughter, I think you have a great talent. Why don't you interview your grandmother? She did. And it's amazing that I have that now that we can share. So it's you know, it's a treasure that is powerful. So for the younger ones, for those of us who have experienced what it is to have somebody in the flesh and no longer have them, and how they can still speak to us and to our future generation, is a good thing that we want to cherish. So thank you so much. We see the power of this thing. And Alan, it's been a pleasure. We continue to be under your tutelage and to work with you and to get really a signature project out there. So thank you so much.
Very welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.